located south of Mackenzie Crescent, extending easterly from Lisgar Street, Ward 18. Councillor Bailao.
Approve recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. TE 15.3, naming of a public lane located north of College Street, extending between Shaw Street and Crawford Street, Ward 19. I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. TE 15.4, naming of a public lane located south of Grange Avenue, extending westerly from Augusta Avenue, Ward 20. Councillor Cressy.
I will move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. TE 15.5, naming of public lane located north of Victor Avenue, extending between Howland Road and Logan Street, Ward 30. Councillor Fletcher.
Move to approve.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. TE 15.6, final report, 540 Eglinton Avenue East Common Elements Condominium application. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, Ward 22, Councillor Matlow.
I move to approve.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. TE 15.7, final report, 300 McPherson Avenue and 235 Conningham Street, southern portion, official plan amendment application. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, Councillor Matlow.
I move approval.
All those in favor? Opposed? That item carries. TE 15.8, final report, 270 to 288 Church Street, 101 to 105 and 111 Bond Street, site plan control application, Ward 27. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, Councillor Wong-Tam.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move an amendment, please. And thank you very much. This amendment was, that is not, hold on. Yes, that is the amendment. Thank you very much. This amendment was prepared in consultation with staff, and with that, we move to adopt the report as amended.
All those in favor of the amendment and the item? All those opposed? That carries. T 15.9, request for directions report 215 to 225 Church Street and 117 Dundas Street East, zoning amendment application, Ward 27. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those, first I should ask for a motion from Councillor Wong-Tam.
Yes, thank you very much. I would move to adopt the recommendations in the staff report, and that is to direct city solicitor and city staff to attend at the Ontario Municipal Board to oppose the appeal of this zoning bylaw amendment application at this property. And I'm just going to cite for the record why we are opposing it. It's already contained in the final report, but for those who are monitoring this particular application, I want to reiterate and emphasize that the tower height is excessive, resulting in extensive shadowing on designated areas. The tower's setback, particularly to the east property line, fails to meet the minimum setback requirements. The podium height fails to transition appropriately to adjacent properties. There's a lack of family-size units. There's an inadequate provision of amenity space. There is excessive number of curb cuts. There's an inadequate public realm sidewalk width. There are insignificant number of vehicle parking spaces, and there is not a satisfactory functional servicing report that has not been completed. The application does not conform to the provincial policy statement, does not conform to the provincial growth plan, and does not conform to the official plan policy 4.8.4, specifically as it states that any new buildings in the vicinity of hospital heliports will be sited en masse to protect the continued use of the flight paths to hospital teleports. With that, ask for a recorded vote.
All those in favor? All those in favor for the recorded vote?
We're going to need hands.
Yeah, let's see some hands, folks. Councillor Davis, Councillor Mahevik, Councillor Matlow. I'm going totally out of order. I'm so sorry. Councillor Matlow, Councillor Layton, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Perks, and I think I see a hand up from Councillor Bailao and Councillor Fletcher. Just raise your hand. Done. And Councillor McMahon's back in the corner with her hand up. The next item is TE 15.10, Request for Directions Report 587 to 599 Young Street, 2 to 4 Donaldson Street, and 7 to 9 Gloucester Street zoning amendment application, Ward 27. I have one speaker. If there are other members of the public who wish to speak, if they could register with the clerk to my right. Catherine Holden, Bay Cloverfield Community Association. Hello.
Good morning.
And you'll have 5 minutes. I'll start your time
You're starting it now?
when you're sit down and comfy. Don't worry.
Okay.
We're not in much of a rush today, so.
Okay, Paul, help me here. It's on, okay. Ready to roll? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Toronto East York Community Council. I'm a representative of the Bay Clover Hill Community Association, and I want to address some points regarding this development that is here before you for approval today. In general, this development has a lot of positive features, and we have pointed those out in the letter that we have put before you from the Bay Clover Hill community.
Pardon me, if I could interrupt you just for 1 second. If we could just get the general volume of the room to turn down slightly. The murmuring is a bit distracting, I think, to both the deputant and to members of the committee. That sounds like it's a bit better. So I'll give you the extra time. Don't worry.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. There are a number of points that are very concerning to the community, the Bay Clover Hill community, in this file. And I'm going to address those specifically rather than the positives. I have put them up on the overhead for you to see. This development was purchased in the summer of 2015 by a new developer, Cressford, from the previous developer who had carried it through to almost a complete state. Once it was changed into new development hands, the file did not change in certain ways. It still maintained the height, it still maintained the density, but it changed in almost every other way. And it is those changes that I want to address today. One of the, well, I call it a property flip, and probably most people would. One thing that has changed is the number of family-sized units have increased, which is a good thing, one would say. However, the number of units has also increased from 420 to 528, without increasing the footprint, without increasing the height, without increasing the things that one would expect. What was done was that 10% on average was, 10 square meters on average was removed from every unit of the 420, and the number of units magically increased to 528. My question is, how can you maintain family-size units when you reduce the size of the unit? How do we as a city monitor what actually means family-size square footage? I don't know the answer to that. The second thing that I would like to ask is, no additional Section 37 was gained in this particular file. There is an intensification in the number of units. The public domain did not get any recognition that they would have the people from 108 additional units added to the public domain. How does the community get that recognition? How does the city get that kind of support? To me, these issues are somewhat outstanding on this particular file. The third main issue I want to address is the question of city protocol. I'm not sure that the appropriate protocols have been followed on this particular file. All of these changes have taken place through the OMB. I don't think the OMB should be dealing with an increase of 108 units. Is that not a question for the Committee of Adjustment? And somehow, by being at the OMB, this particular developer has managed to bring things that I consider variances. He has managed to bring them to the OMB instead of to the Committee of Adjustment. I don't know why, as a city, we are having this kind of issue come before council. That is another question I have. When it doesn't come before a Committee of Adjustment, it removes the possibility of Section 45(9), which would further benefit the community as a whole. And the building seems to have looked after the internal amenities, but the public domain has not been dealt with. The final thing I really want to talk to you about is, has all of this come about because of the imbalance of the ward system in the City of Toronto? We have 44 wards, but they're not equal. But they are given equal staff, or almost equal staff. Wards downtown might have planners carrying 20 to 40 development files. That's almost impossible. Other wards may have only 6 files for a planner to manage. I'm asking you, as the Council for Downtown, how do we address that problem in our city? That imbalance is allowing files to come to fruition that maybe shouldn't be there. I don't really have answers, I just have a lot of questions. That's all I want to say today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the deputant? Councillor Mahavik?
You are, this is rhetorical, you are aware, I'm sure, that there's a redistribution that is happening, and the report for that redistribution is coming forward to council sometime in May or June.
Could you just expand on that? A redistribution of?
Of the wards,
Oh,
ward
yes,
boundaries.
but is that going to change the fact that downtown wards are still going to have 20, they're still going to have 20 files they're managing, whereas other wards may still have only 6?
Or none in the suburbs, yes. No, it doesn't change that fact. It doesn't change that fact.
No, and that's the,
It'll
sorry.
push the ball in the right direction, but it won't change the workload around planning issues.
So I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. I do know that change is happening. I still say something isn't quite right when you have that imbalance of workload, and I still think that as a city, we really need to find a better way to deal with making all of the planning system a little bit more equal across the city. Because all of those problems that I described are being taken to the OMB, and the OMB is overruling a lot of the planning that has happened, or it's carrying through the planning process. Is that what we want for our city? I'm not sure it is.
Are there any other questions of the deputant? No, thank you very much. Paul, I see your name on here as well. I'll just reset the clock and you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Paul Farrelly from Church Wellesley Neighbourhood Association. And this is at the end of my street. And on the right is the building that got approved here a couple of years ago. And on the left is the building rendering that has come out of this process at the OMB. And, you know, they're not the same. It's, as Catherine pointed out, it's a very significant change, and it really throws into question, you know, what you approve here, the likelihood of it sort of getting through. And we know this OMB issue it goes back to the inability to respond in 180 days. Consequently, it's at the OMB. And here we have a very significant amendment with no community engagement, but basically depending on the staff report. So we're waving this by, and it's an example of basically how the OMB makes us collectively irrelevant unless we have money to go there. And that is not an easy matter going there. And last time I was here, you very graciously approved the historic Young Heritage Conservation District, which this building sits right in the middle. And if you remember those previous diagrams, it doesn't look like there's any kind of contribution to the district. What you're seeing here is our website, New Life for Young Fund. And we have raised $50,000 to have an expert witness at the OMB hearings into the area plan and the HCD. If you have any community associations in your ward who are thinking about going to the OMB, they could come to this site and they will see the ruling from early January where through our efforts we were able to define clearly the 6 commandments of getting a community representation at the OMB. But folks, there's got to be legal aid for the OMB. There's got to be a way for communities to put resources, and you know, we really have to grapple with this. It's all right saying, you know, you have your own new Committee of Adjustment appeal process, but the OMB still lives, and there's a distinct imbalance. You know, there's the distortion of your will, which was that other building. Now we have another building, and, you know, community completely and utterly silent on it. So please let's get ways that will make the process better. And that is because we know from OMB decisions that if there is an expert witness, and God bless Rob Ford, but he used to hold up these things, oh, OMB request for direction, and he'd put a hold on it. Oh, they want to hire an expert witness. But they don't hire an expert witness. They bring the planner there. And when you look at the judgments, you get creamed. The developers' expert witnesses basically carry the day, unless you get director level, at least, planners appearing, because there's no point. And we realize in this that if the community wasn't there, anytime the community is there, there's a very different outcome. So do what you can to address that, please.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the Deputy? Councillor Matlow.
Paul, have you had an opportunity when Councillor Wong Tam and I brought forward a motion early last term to request the provincial government to free Toronto from the Ontario Municipal Board? Have you had an opportunity to look at the recorded vote on that item?
No, tell us.
I suggest look through that and see how the mayor of the time voted. I don't think that you'd be pleased. But I just wanted to raise that point, given the fact that you mentioned a name, and I wanted to kind of clarify that there have been both external but also internal obstacles to achieve our goals.
Well, that's true, and your colleague, former colleague who is now at government, I attended the session you had and on the OMB, and there was a very disappointed audience that it doesn't look like the OMB is going anywhere. And if you can imagine in your neck of the woods to have such a dramatic change of a building with no engagement, any councillor would say, hey, you know, there's something wrong here. So I think we have to be realistic, and I think that in a way, by saying no OMB, we're not doing other things that we could do to work the system better. And certainly, since the OMB is governed on the expert testimony adheres, you cannot win unless you are putting good expert testimony.
May I just, a quick question, because I know we don't have a lot of time this morning, but I just, because I've been curious about this concept too, because I agree with you about the basic inequity between the developer's means typically to be able to fight their fight and the average resident's ability to hire high-priced lawyers and consultants, et cetera. When you mentioned, you kind of alluded to intervenor funding or some sort of legal aid. Have you ever thought of, because I haven't figured this out, where would those resources come from? Should it be funded by the province? Like, how do you see that happening?
Well, it is a question for
I'm
you.
curious about that idea.
Yeah, well, it's a question for the city as to how you kind of strengthen the democratic process through to the final conclusion. And when you look at a result like this, well, we understand you're at an OMB and you're in mediations and you make a deal, and it actually feels good when you're in the room. But when you're not in the room, you have no idea what's going on. And so you have to have somebody in the room. So if there was a resource, expert, to give you the guidance to say, if you've got an expert to advance that point of view, that is a good thing on this particular application. It's too much to expect community associations, and especially ones like ours, who have just one after another buildings, because we are changing the landscape, and it's the developers are changing the landscape. In the community, we're just waving it by. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the deputant? Seeing none, I've got a Peter Rex. Peter, if you can have a seat, whichever seat you want. Just make sure the light's on the microphone.
Yep, it is.
And I'll start your time when you're ready.
Great, thank you. Councillors, thank you very much for having me. Notwithstanding the previous comments, which I think were very valid, I have to admit I kind of like this building, and I've been through all the various meetings with the OMB as well. I am a little bit saddened that we're losing the building at the corner of Yonge and Dundonald, which was, I don't know if it was historical, but it certainly was old character, and that seems to be going in this part of this amendment. But my question pertains more specifically to the impact on James Canning Park. I see that we have Section 37 money for approximately $1.2 million, but I'm just wondering if in the process of constructing this building, if this building park is going to be turned over into a staging area in the meantime, and that most of the mature trees in that park are going to be cut down. Because I've gone through various reports here, and I don't see the planning for that park, except for at the end of it, there's going to be $1.2 million spent to restore it. But I'm concerned that it's going to be basically an off-limits territory for a number of years, radically cut down in the meantime, and there's seems to be notice regarding what is going to be happening with regards to that.
Thank you very much. Perhaps we can get that question answered for you in the course of time in our debate, because that's just not the way it works. Are there any questions of the deputant? No? Seeing none, thank you very much. And there's a Jane Pepino.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. I'm the representative for the new owner, Crestford Developments, and I would like to address the comments that I've heard from the three previous deputants. In fact, to Ms. Holden's point, that is this real, is it a flip? Crestford Developments has a long and I think excellent record of good development in the downtown area. The previous development was pulled together and pushed through the approvals process, not pushed through, taken through the approvals process by folks who were owners, not developers. And so it is very real, and Crestford has since last June been working extensively with your staff. We've had meetings with the planners, meetings of course with the urban designers, and have done a complete review of the heritage impact And I can say to you that all of those have been met to staff satisfaction, and I appreciate the acknowledgement that the building is in fact better than it had previously been by way of design. There is an increase in family size units. I can state with respect to the increase in the number of units, the parking ratios remain the same, albeit that the parking supply is based on the ratios. The indoor amenity space ratios have been met. The outdoor amenity space ratios have been met, and so there is no downside to any form of amenity from the increase in units. And in fact, the number of family size units has been substantially increased over the target of 10%. With respect to the issue of additional Section 37 commitments, there is no right on the part of the city to demand them because, as been noted, there is no increase in height, there is no increase in density. That said, during a meeting with your councillor, she has pointed out that there is a deficiency with respect to the quality of the parkland in the area, and although the previous Section 37 called for the owner, now my client, to redesign and to provide the funds to rebuild James Canning Park, which is the park directly behind this particular site, we have, and there will be a motion, I hope, placed by the councillor with which my client agrees, that an additional sum of $100,000 be provided for the design of, and consistent design of, the two additional linear parks, being the George Hislop Park and the Norman Jewison Parks, which link to the north. So there has been an uptick, if I can put it that way, in the public amenity provisions secured through Section 37. With respect to the issue of the protocol, the process, the concern, I just would like to point out that for all of the issues, the second speaker, I think it was Farrell, has a misunderstanding. This application was taken to the municipal board about 2.5 to 3 years by the previous owner, and there was a settlement. The City of Toronto came to an agreement and consented to the form of development at that time. And as a result, however, because the site plan had not been provided for, nor had there been a Section 37 agreement, the municipal board withheld its order. So to Ms. Holden's point, there is no bylaw in full force and effect that the Committee of Adjustment can vary. The only way to have these new improved design matters secured is by going back to the Committee of Adjustment. And the councillor, at the applicant's expense, did a very extensive notification of this directions report, more than double what would have been the statutory requirement. So when compared to the ordinary process, there is nothing that has been lacking. There has nothing that's been left to guess, and I can reinforce that with the requirement that your staff placed on my client. We filed a full site plan application last November, and this recommendation report is based on all of the comments that have come back from that site plan review. And with respect to the issue of heritage, there's been very careful care. There was a new heritage impact assessment done to ensure that the view to the historic Masonic Temple at the northeast corner of Gloucester and Yonge has been not only maintained but improved, and the heritage building, character building at the south end of the site is being given exactly the same treatment as had been previously secured. So all in all, with respect, I think that your staff has acknowledged this is an improved building. It comes with improvements. It better meets the goals of the municipality. The final thing I should add is that as a result of my client's involvement, there is now the expectation and work underway to have this building connect directly to the north end of the College Street subway station, again, providing improved amenity, not only for the residents of this building, but also for the neighborhood, and improved convenience. Unless there are questions, those are my responses to those deputies.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, any questions of staff? Councillor Wong-Tam.
Thank you very much. Before I ask the question of staff, just to clarify, it's actually a connection to Wellesley subway station, not College, but I think we know what you meant by that. With respect to the concerns raised by the Community Association, both Bay Clover Hill Community Association and the Church Wellesley Neighborhood Association, can you speak directly to the concerns that they raise? I know that Ms. Pepino had spoken on behalf of the applicant, but I'd like you to speak on behalf of the city. In particular, the questions about why did this application did not go before the Committee of Adjustment. Was it procedurally correct to place that there? And whether or not it was appropriate for the OMB to be used for the number of site plan variances as outlined in their letter.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the issues of process, as outlined by the applicant's representative, I would concur with the remarks that were provided. The board is essentially the approval authority right now on the zoning matter. The site plan has not been appealed, so the site plan is still with the city. So the board dealt with the previous owner. The city settled with the previous owner on a scheme, and subsequently the property was sold, and the city was engaged by the new owner, who came forward with what I would describe as modifications. And the board is certainly can certainly, as the approval authority, consider modifications that are brought to it in the course of reaching a final disposition on a matter. So it's perfectly appropriate. Of course, the city would be concerned about notice, and oftentimes discussions are held at the board, and the city does everything it can to involve the community that's been engaged in the process. Certainly, if there are parties at the board would be interested in seeing the involvement of those parties. And all of that took place, and in fact, the Community Council may recall that this matter was brought forward as a possible report a few months ago, and through the local councillor, the matter was sent back, and more time was given to engage the community. In addition, the notice that was given of this report, which outlines staff's thoughts on the revisions. The revisions, in staff's opinion, are fully within the building envelope that was previously considered by this community council, and from a built form point of view, staff consider the new scheme to be better and less impactful than the previous scheme. I wanted to, those are my comments on the process side. The matter could have, the board could have approved the old bylaw, but frankly, what would the point have been if we knew that we were all dealing with a new scheme that the city, in fact, thought was a better scheme? It was, I think, in the city's interest to work with the new scheme, knowing full well that we are going to get a better outcome at the end of the day. The other issues, if you wanted me to comment, the family size unit issue in particular, the Community Council may be aware that the City Planning Division has initiated a process called Growing Up, which is planning for children in the city. That process is about creating a policy framework, a better policy framework for considering these kinds of issues. That work is going to look at the issue at different scales. It's going to look at it the scale of what are the appropriate unit sizes for family size units. It's going to look at the building amenities that are needed to support family living in vertical, especially in vertical communities. And it's going to look at it at a neighborhood scale. What things are we doing right to support family life in vertical communities, and what additional things do we need to consider? And put a policy framework, potentially guidelines around that, so that when we have these conversations with applicants and communities, we know on what basis we need to be asking for amenities and features that support family life. The process to date over the last 5 to 7 years has been a matter of negotiation. And we have done well in creating, I think, thousands of what we consider to be supportable family-size units, 2- and 3-bedroom units. But we want to take it the next step. The conversation has to mature, and we need to get a more robust policy framework in place so we can basically improve the way that we're accommodating family life in vertical communities. Those were two, the issue of parking, underground parking. There are 4 levels of parking. As noted by one of the speakers, the parking is accommodated in the building. We consider the amenity space, it meets the standards, the zoning standards, and we believe it's functional to support the density that's proposed in the building. So all together, it's been duly considered, and the issues that have been raised by the community, while they are fair, we've been mindful of them, and we've been working on resolving them. And I would just finish by saying that the site plan, even though the applicant filed the site plan is not before the OMB, it's still before the city, and we will continue to work with the applicant, and we're happy to work with the community finishing up the site plan and any details, certainly through the local councillor. If there's any further consultation that's required, we're happy to accommodate that.
And can you speak to a concern that was raised by our third deputant, Mr. Rex, about possibly permitting construction staging on James Canning Park during the construction period of this tower? Is that a common practice of the city? Is that something that you would recommend to this committee council?
No, I don't believe there's a parks rep to speak to it, but I would say that would be an extraordinary occurrence for that to happen, and the normal course of trying to accommodate construction staging would be, for some, unfortunately, in the city's right-of-way, but not in the city's parks.
Okay. And thank you very much. That's all the questions I have.
Are there any other questions of the deputant? Seeing none, Councillor Wong-Tam to speak.
Thank you. I'd like to move and place an amendment on the floor here. This amendment is one that the applicant's legal counsel spoke to earlier, and it is a further security of an additional sum of $100,000 to amend the existing Section 37 agreement to permit for further landscape park designs to extend beyond James Canning Park and to reach Norman Jewison and George Hislop Park. And the reason to do this is to ensure that the linear park system that is on the east side of Yonge Street that sits over the subway is going to be improved with a holistic design, with the integrity of a holistic design attached. And so then I would now speak to the item and the motion placed. The OMB is obviously a reality that we operate under at the City of Toronto, in the province of Ontario. Councillor Matlow and I have raged against the Ontario Municipal Board on numerous occasions. I've run out of language on what I want to call the OMB. We can say it's quasi-judicial, we say it's politically appointed, we can say it's unfair, and all those things have been said. Anti-democratic, thank you for filling in the gaps, but it's also a reality that we have to operate under. And until there is a political shifting of attitudes at Queen's Park, I don't believe that, and including political contributions from developers, land use planners, I also don't believe that that's going to change anytime soon. So I've said it on the floor of council, I'll say it here at Community Council, we are not going to be rid of the OMB anytime soon. And I recognize that the community is frustrated with the Ontario Municipal Board. I can assure you that no one is probably more frustrated than our planning staff at the city, because their positions are constantly undermined at the board. And yet, when it comes time to provincial elections, I recognize that the Ontario Municipal Board and the reforms that we want of their board are never the ballot box issue at any provincial election. So I'll just put that on the table, because I think it needs to be said. But I know that the community sits before this community council, and they're looking for assistance. They want to ensure that their voices are heard, and we grapple with that dichotomy all the time. In this case, what we did is we expanded the notification area, and I think it was actually quite large. It reached neighborhoods that are outside of the Yonge Street boundary, because we wanted to make sure that everyone knew that there was going to be a material change in the application in the submissions before the board. And this has not necessarily been an easy application. I think the members of the community, as well as city planning have struggled with the application because we've been dealing with it for about 4 years now, and it was garbage when it first appeared before us. Nothing was pleasant about this application, including the attitude of the previous owner, if I may say. It was very confrontational, extremely adversarial, and we did not have any positive discussions until we even got to the board, and even then it was literally the board handing the city its ruling without taking into consideration anything that city planning had to say, nor necessarily any considerations that the community wanted. So I don't air the community at all for the frustration that they have expressed. We are just as frustrated with this planning process, but nevertheless, it's the planning process that we have before us. What I do think has dramatically improved about this application is that we actually have a real developer before us, and this is not a site that's going to languish. We have a developer that's now committed to retaining the heritage properties that are there. We have a developer who's got a track record with the community, and I know that they're going to work with the community to make sure the site plan is going to provide for us the extraordinary public realm aspirations and ambitions that we have in the neighborhood. We're talking about wider sidewalks, about better park improvements, about laneway reclamation, and about creating pedestrian-friendly environments all over the downtown core. And I know that Crestford is willing to commit to that. By way of this modest contribution, which is only $100,000, which they didn't have to provide, I think that is a kind enough gesture to say we're still interested in city building with you and the community by improving the linear park systems that are in desperate need of a refresh. So I want to thank City Legal and City Planning. You've sat with this file for many years, and you've been part of some really tough negotiations with the previous owner, and I know that you've now been struggling to ensure that we are able to build a healthy, sustainable, inclusive, and family-friendly downtown for everyone, and that includes making sure that family-sized units are included in every single application in the downtown core, and I know that you work really hard to secure that. The units are a little bit smaller, yes, absolutely. However, you had an owner that submitted an application that really was submitting a placeholder, which meant that the units were probably not going to be, the project was not buildable. And we've learned that that's the way it works when you have property owners who are not developers, who don't engage engineers to ensure that the project is sustainable and developable at the end of the day. But that is what we have before us, including 21% out of the entire project is earmarked for family-sized units. That's an extraordinary number. I mean, I don't think that I have too often in Ward 27 had a developer step forward and say, I'll build you over 21% affordable housing in downtown Toronto. It's hard enough to get them to 10%, and we struggle to get them to 10%, let alone hit the 21% mark, and that deserves an applause. So with that, I ask members of council, members of community council here to vote on this, and I ask that to be voted on with a recorded vote.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers on the item? Seeing none, there's been a request for a recorded vote on the amendment and the item. All those in favor? Councillor Bailao, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Matlow, Councillor Perks, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, Councillor Cressy, Councillor Mihevc, and Councillor Fletcher. That vote is unanimous.
On both.
On both.
On both?
Yeah. Thank you very much. The next item up is TE 15.11, residential demolition application for Dundonald Street, Ward 27. Are there any members of the public to speak to this item? No? Any questions of staff? None. Councillor Wong-Tam.
By way of supporting the last motion and the last report, we are now permitting the demolition and move to demolish for Dundonald. so that we can facilitate this development and so that the applicant can begin the archaeological dig. Let's see if we find anything exciting underneath the ground.
All those in favor? Opposed? Of finding excited things? All opposed? That carries.
Just don't hit the subway there.
TE 15.12, intention to designate Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement, 201 Crawford Street. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, it's in Ward 19. I'll happily move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. T 15.15, alterations to a designated heritage property and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement, 175 Jones Avenue. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, any questions of staff? Councillor Fletcher. 175 Jones, 15.13, alteration to a designated heritage property. Approve the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. TE 15.14, alterations to heritage properties and intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, 650, 658, and 660 Broadview Avenue, Ward 30. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, Councillor Fletcher.
Move to approve.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. TE 15.15, request for a fence exemption, 231 Mutual Street. I had a Judy Kirkness. Hello. And then I was told you didn't wish to speak.
Yes.
If you do wish to, that's fine. And you must be Paul Towers?
Dylan.
Dylan. Okay, there's another member to speak. So if you could, Dylan, if you could just say your whole name, and you've got 5 minutes each. We can put it together or stretch it out.
We're together.
Whatever. Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay, so my name's Judy Kirkness, and I'm one of the partners at Oasis Aqua Lounge, and I'm here with Dylan Tower, who's our general manager. And we're requesting a fence exemption to erect a higher privacy fence at the front of our building. Oasis is a private members club located at 231 Mutual, and a majority of our clientele are women. When the no smoking bylaw came into effect on January 1st, our smoking members could no longer smoke in the open air patio that we had at the back of the club, as they had been permitted in the past. So instead, they had to exit the building, move 9 meters away in either direction. This was really inconvenient for our guests, and women reported feeling unsafe being out there, often alone, as Oasis is open until 3 a.m. So we were also contacted by Councillor Wong Tam's office that some neighbors had complained about our patrons being on the sidewalk smoking and talking at late hours. So the situation has caused a great deal of extra work for us, as we have had to go and obviously clean up all the cigarette butts from the sidewalk, as not everyone will use the receptacles we provided, and we've had to devote staff time to monitoring the areas regularly and asking guests to keep their voices down to respect the neighbors. So we were in contact with the Neighbourhood Community Association to brainstorm ideas for solving the situation, and their suggestion was to ask for an exemption to allow smoking to resume back on the patio. However, with the help of the Councillor's office, we were put in touch with the smoking bylaw group at the city to see if an exemption was possible. Unfortunately, smoking bylaw officer Kathleen Buchanan came and with their supervisor concluded that we could not smoke in the back. She explained, however, that the intent of the bylaw was that smokers shouldn't have to walk through a wall of smoke to access any area meant for all patrons. So she said we could use the front yard as a smoking area, accessing it from the front door of the building, because we were not currently using that door, as there are 3 other emergency exits on that floor already. However, for this to be possible, we would need this fence exemption, so that's exactly what we applied for. So we were then put in touch with the bylaw department, and they visited under James Slocum to discuss the fence options, and they have done a report for you. We have 2 letters of support from the closest neighbors that would be affected by this smoking in the front yard. We met last week with the Granby Residents Association representative, Ian Grimmel, who's a former architect. He said that while the residents would still prefer that smoking be allowed in the back patio, since it is not, he explained that if a fence is necessary, that they would want one fitting with the period of the historic building. So last week, we went out and consulted with Rockland Restorations, expert in repairing homes from this period of this historic building, which is about 120 years old. and they have given us some examples and photos, which unfortunately my Windows is not fast enough to load up to show you. But we believe that this solution of a more period-looking fence in the front would keep the neighbors happy and provide a safe and private area for our customers who spoke. So we would appreciate council's support of this application.
Thank you very much. Would you wish to add anything, or?
No, I was standing in for Jim.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the deputant? No? I'm all in. Thank you. You can have a seat. I'll ask Paul Towers. Is there a Paul Towers? Was it Towers? Was that my? Dylan Towers. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, we had Dylan.
I had it as Paul on mine. My apologies. Dylan. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Wong-Tam to speak.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to move to grant the application for the fence exemption and to allow the fence to be maintained as constructed. I also want to thank the property owner and the business operator of Oasis Lounge. I know that they have tried to maintain good neighborly relations. I know that they've conducted open houses with the McGill or Granby Village Residents Association. They have done a lot to try to operate a business that is permitted in the area that's adjacent to a low-rise residential neighborhood, and sometimes conflicts arise. And I'm very much aware that the Residents Association, as much as they would like to see no loitering, no smoking outside the building, you know, once they're outside, you want to be able to sort of contain it. So I think it's an agreeable solution that everyone has come to a compromise on, and I think certainly this community council can support what has been agreed upon in the community.
Any other councillors to speak? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the screen and the item, all those opposed, that item carries. Can I have a motion to reopen item TE 15.11? Councillor Wong-Tam, all those in favor, opposed, that carries. Councillor Wong-Tam to speak.
Yes, thank you very much. This is regarding the demolition approval at 4 Dundonald. I erred by not placing my motion earlier, and I need to do that now. It's just to ensure that the site is maintained. It's going to be in clean condition. The property owner is going to satisfy any requirements of urban forestry, tree protection during the demolition of this property. And if there is any removal of trees, that the trees will be replaced according to urban forestry.
All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? That carries. And on the item, all those in favor, opposed? That carries. We move to TE 15.16, appeal of the denial of a Boulevard Cafe permit located at 596 College Street, Clinton Street flankage. Are there any members of the public to speak to this item? No. Any questions of staff? None. It's in Ward 19. I have a motion to grant the cafe permit on the following conditions: closure time, music, contact number, sound and visual barriers, and a review by the councillor after 2 years. All those in favor of the amendment and the item, all those opposed, that carries. TE 15.17, request for extension of operating hours of the Boulevard Cafe permit located at 487 Adelaide Street West, Unit 100 Portland Street, Ward 20. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? The patio at 487 Adelaide. No? Councillor Cressy.
All right, I have an amendment, if it could be put on the screen. So with the amendment, which outlines a number of conditions, prepared to grant the request. These are around sound barriers, amplified noise, signage, and others.
Just get that on the screen. Perfect. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. TE 15.18, request.
It's been withdrawn.
It's been withdrawn. We know that? Okay, I'll motion to withdraw. Councillor Cressy, all those in favor, opposed, that carries. TE 15.19, to report on a request received from the councillor in the matter of application for a Boulevard Cafe permit application located at 121 Richmond Street, Ward 28. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this item? None. Any councillors to speak? Councillor Wong Tam. Count- 19, 121 Richmond West.
I have that.
Sorry.
I have that for Councillor McConnell.
Okay, sorry, it sounded as 28 mine, but Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, Councillor McConnell has asked that we withdraw that report from this agenda.
Motion to withdraw. Councillor Fletcher, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. That item is
Thank you to
withdrawn.
the clerk for being nimble, having two motions and putting the right one up at the very last minute.
TE 15.20, front yard parking appeal, 51 Kenwood Avenue. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to them? Hello, sir. You could come join us and just state your name and you'll have 5 minutes.
Sure. I've got some documents as well.
You can hand them off to the clerk here to our right, and they'll circulate them.
Oh, you signed it,
Yes.
sorry. It's in my to sign.
Sure, yeah, plug it in. We've got Andy there to take care of us. Glad I did. No. It's a beautiful building. We're good? We want to try to, while we're setting that up, deal with some other business?
It's actually weird door parking. This is a totally new spot. It's been here. I need to park. But it's only,
In the front yard.
it's in the backyard.
Yes.
No, just one.
There we go. Thank you. If we could get the volume just leveled off again, that'd be great. Thanks. And you'll have 5 minutes, and if you could start by stating your name, that'd be great.
It's Steve User and my wife Jessica Russell. We're the owners of 51 Kenwood Avenue. The appeal is happening because the original proposal was rejected because of parking pad being in a tree protection zone. I guess before I get into it, I just want to briefly state where we're coming from. We're trying to do this to improve the condition of the trees, and we've got okay from forestry already on this. We bought the house in early 2013, and the asphalt and curb cuts and everything is all as existing when we got it. So what we're trying to do is improve the area, improve the streetscape, improve the backyard, improve the conditions for the trees with permeability, and relocating the parking from where it is and what you see in the photo there to the location essentially directly in front of what is the deck. There basically reduces the amount of traffic required on the actual tree root zone, and also affords us the ability to remove a whole large portion of asphalt. I think the big thing here, and in the package that you have, is that we've got emails back and forth between ourselves and forestry, in which we've discussed with urban forestry and Chris Plant therein the issue of doing work in the tree protection zone in this situation, and they feel that it is okay to do so. I've highlighted on the first page of that email collection 8.5 by 11 at the bottom there. Basically, the forestry, as long as we follow the outline or guides that they've given and negotiate with them a deposit for the trees, that we can, that the work is acceptable to them. And that's really the key element in all of this, given that the proposal was originally rejected for parking, for being in the tree protection zone. Beyond that, the purpose and the implementation of our proposal, which I've outlined in the layout plans, which are subsequent to the email chain. Essentially, what it does is enclose the backyard to provide a level of privacy. It gives us an opportunity to re-landscape the streetscape and provide a better amenity to the public, and improves safety, visibility, and from that, we're hoping that the overall impact is a win-win for everyone, including the trees.
Are there any questions of the deputant? No? Thank you very much. Are there any questions of staff? No? To speak, Councillor Mihevc.
Well, just very, very quickly to staff, just in case that this is one of those anomalies. You know, the folks, that I come up with these very, very rarely. I just want to confirm with staff that the removal of the asphalt that is currently there and has been there for a dog's age is going to be removed, and it actually provides better health for that tree. Is that
That is correct.
That is correct, okay. And they're going to stop parking in front of the tree and park towards the house, which further gives additional protection to that tree.
It would provide a further distance from the tree, yes.
And also, this is not, well, it is technically front yard parking, but it's actually at the side of the house.
Technically, under the old bylaw, prior to the rewriting of the current bylaw, this would have been referred to as residential boulevard parking.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I will move the alternate recommendations, which allows them to basically dig up the asphalt, improve the health of the tree. Ramp's already there, they don't need a new ramp. This is okay.
Yeah. Are there any other councillors to speak? Councillor Perks.
For the first time in 10 years.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. This
Oh,
one,
my.
this one, because of some weirdness about it's currently legal to pave that whole backyard. I've never seen one like this before, but this is actually an improvement. I was tempted to leave the room to keep my record perfect.
He never votes for us, never votes for us.
But I'm going to have to vote with the local councillor on this. I'm shocked.
Okay.
You were an environmentalist. My God.
Never seen one like this. It's York, yeah, okay, that explains it.
Don't be knocking.
I'm
A lot of little higgledy.
I'm actually a little surprised that it's even being classified as a front yard parking plat, given it's at the rear of the house.
I know.
I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around this.
Don't worry about it.
But I will not worry about it and spend any more time thinking about it. Thank you very much. All those in favor of the alternate recommendations, all those opposed, that carries.
I'm joking.
That carries. Thank you. It's been granted. The next one up is TE 15.21, front yard parking appeal, 38 Elmer Avenue. I have a speaker, Mike Wilson.
And so I'm gonna defer this, sine die.
Deferred indefinitely. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Let's get back to our items, folks, of the previous, that we passed over earlier. And then we'll get to the added items. First, if I could have a motion to add to the agenda Councillor Cressy's item TE 15.79, moved by Councillor Fragedakis. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Going back, I have TE 15.31, construction staging area, Selby Street. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to move a series of amendments. And the first one you would recognize as the one that you voted on earlier on 3 other occasions. This one has one additional clause attached to it, and that is to direct the applicant in consultation with Transportation Services to provide disability parking spaces in the vicinity of the Rosedale Medical Center located at 600 Sherbourne and other medical care centers affected by construction staging.
Are there any other councillors to speak? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? And on the item, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. apparently Councillor Cressy didn't get the memo about adding stuff on the agenda prior to a meeting. We also have to add items TE 15.80 and TE's 15.81.
Joe.
And how many letterheads are we working with today, Joe? Like, you literally printed these off one after another, and they're on two different letterheads. Just saying. All those in favor of adding, all those opposed, that carries. My next one, TE 15.45, parking regulations, Carla, between Lakeshore Boulevard and Queen. Councillor Fletcher.
I am very happy to have a motion here today that clarifies that, to replace the recommendations with the following, Mr. Chair. The clerk has that.
45.
That is to change that between Queen and Eastern and leave it intact between Eastern and Lakeshore, and also to have a look at the traffic circulation around the Lakeshore corridor and Carlaw, as well as the motion that went to City Council on the Gardner, which was staff will be reporting on a very comprehensive traffic management mitigation plan for Gardner construction. So I'm moving that here today.
Thank you. All those in favor of the amendment and the item, all those opposed, that carries. Next item is TE 15.47, traffic planning in Rivertown, Ward 30. Councillor Fletcher.
I also have a motion, Mr. Chair.
This is on
Which is not to receive. So really, we are referring it.
Do we have your vote on future parking paths?
Where?
Okay, okay. Just checking.
But it doesn't say refer.
Holding a public meeting.
Yes, and come back before September 30th, 16, and to, that wasn't exactly the motion I put in. I didn't put that motion, so we're going to have to hold that. I'm going back to my original motion that I submitted. Sorry.
Okay, we'll hold that down. Item 48 is the 40-kilometer speed limit on Niagara Street. Despite the fact that some members don't like the language, it has been confirmed by transportation staff that indeed it is the correct language. So all those in favor, all those opposed, that carries.
Borough Council, you guys really...
That was 48. 67 is our next item.
That's not even...
Use of Nathan Phillips Square. Oh, Councillor Davis wanted to... Can nobody leave the room? Can no councillors please leave the room? No, I just want to make sure, because we're like moving through here, and Councillor Davis wanted to move a motion on one of these items, but she's not here now. Councillor Davis, please come to Committee Room 1. My serious voice. 67. Item number 67, which was, or 69, sorry. Improving pedestrian safety at the intersection of Carlaw and Langley. Councillor Fletcher, pedestrian safety at Carlaw and Langley.
To move the recommendations in the letter, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, opposed, that carries. TE 15.70, safe pedestrian crossing at Queen and Empire Avenue, Ward 30, Councillor Fletcher.
I think I'd like to move those recommendations here today.
All those in favor, opposed, that carries. DE 15.71, improving traffic safety in the pocket. Ward 30.
Great little neighborhood that wants to have a traffic plan. They've been working on that for a while. I'd like to move that request, please.
All those in favor, opposed, that carries. TE 15.72, presentation from Urban Forestry regarding tree removal.
I wanted to have a presentation or a letter to this committee very clearly on the steps. There's been some issues that I've found that there does not appear to be consistency across the Toronto and East York as to how those are being managed for tree removals and development. So I'd just like to have that report. Mr.
All those in favor for a presentation at our next meeting from Urban Forestry. All those opposed, that carries. TE 15.73, relocation of the southbound stop sign on Carla Avenue, Ward 30. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. I'd like to have that moved to where the crossing is for the kids, please.
All those in favor, opposed, that carries. TE 15.74, installation of all-way stop control at Withrow and Logan, Ward 30. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. This is part of an ongoing Riverdale traffic planning, and this is the strong desire of the neighborhood and the recommendation of our Director of Transportation Planning, Toronto East York.
I'm seeing a head nod over there from Kip. All those in favor, opposed, that carries. TE 15.75, proposed amendments to parking prohibition, Lappin Avenue, Ward 18. Councillor Bailao. Do we just want to assume that her letter is in fact her intent of what she would like accomplished?
Yes.
And unless she comes running through the door, I'll pass on her behalf the recommendations that she's made to us?
Yeah.
All those opposed, all those in favor, opposed, that carries. TE 15.76, pedestrian-friendly Pape Avenue, request for staff to study, that is the one we already did. That is the one we did for Councillor Fragedakis. TE 15.77, exempting Fir Avenue permit parking for the requirements of subsection 925-4B of the City of Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 925, Ward 32. Councillor McMahon.
Great. So I would just say that this is trying to get some parking spots in the very crowded, congested beach. And this is as a result of us removing the 3 parking spots on Fernwood Park Avenue that were illegally placed in the park. So, so we're trying to get spots on this street. So I move adoption.
All those in favor, opposed, that carries.
I have a stake through.
The 3 items from Councillor Cressy, the first being TE 15.79, Ontario Municipal Board Hearing 112, Harvard Street. Councillor Cressy.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendations in my letter for the city solicitor to defend.
All those in favor, opposed, that carries. TE 15.80, 2016 John Street Pedestrian Initiative. Councillor Cressy.
Thank you. I'm going to move the recommendations in my letter. This is for the John Street Pedestrian Initiative pilot ongoing prior to the full implementation. This year, we're going to work with the cycling community around how it's implemented, though.
All those in favor, opposed, that carries. TE 15.81, Harvard Village Green Plan, Ward 20. Councillor Cressy.
All right, I'm going to move the recommendations in my letter, but because you grinned, I'm going to tell you that we had a planning intern in our office spend 6 months working with the Residents Association to develop a comprehensive green plan for the neighborhood, looking at laneway greening opportunities, flankage corners, planting boxes, pinch points, and others. We have the plan in place. We've secured some funding for it, and this is a request to work with Transportation Services to prepare a plan to implement it. We've been meeting with them. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
That's exciting.
Do we have to pass motions to have meetings with staff now?
No, we're creating a project charter. We've done this in Rush Lane.
A project charter.
That's what they call it.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. There was one item that we still had to deal with, 47.
Yes, I now have a motion.
Councillor Fletcher.
I've got a revised motion, and there it is.
All those in favor of the amendment? Which one was that? And the motion? All those opposed?
Planning.
That carries. I believe that is that. Now, we still did twice as many items as Scarborough, Etobicoke.
Indefinitely?
But we need a minute to prepare the bills. So let's just not go too far.
Yeah, sit tight.
Go lie down.
Do we want to sing along? I do a lot of sing-alongs at home right now, so
Now I'm going to bring tons of party pads for it, now that I know that it's...
I don't know what that song would be.
Yeah.
We're not singing Wheels on the Bus.
Raise a little.
Round.
Raise a little hell. Councillor Fletcher and I's pump song now.
Backyard front pad party.
Oh, we haven't dealt with 67 yet.
She's almost here. She's on her way.
Well, we're done, so. On item 67, which is in Ward 20 on Nathan Phillips Square, it says Ward 20 in the thing, so it's Ward 27. My understanding is Councillor Davis has left this motion and has discussed it with the local councillor. Perhaps Councillor Mahavik will take carriage of it, that Toronto and East York Community Council requests the CCO to report back to the May meeting on existing bylaws and operating policies pertaining to the use of Nathan Phillips Square. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And on the item, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We also have the party clause, I think.
Yes, we do. We just need like
Okay.
3 or 4 minutes.
We need 5 minutes.
That's all.
Could everyone take a washroom break and be back in 5? Let's say 11:30. I need 7 bodies in the room, okay?
What?
At 11:30, I need 7 people in the room.
Go to the bathroom and throw up. Throw up for your vote.
Yeah, I have to go lie down now.
Go throw up.
Pardon me?
List of what
If I could call us back to order to complete the meeting. Thank you all very much for your patience. On the motion TE 15.68, I'm moving the party clause. All those in favor? Opposed? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. It's already passed. Yeah, yeah. And the bills, Councillor Cressy.
That the Toronto and East York Community Council pass and declare as bylaws Bills 341 to 387 prepared for the April 5th, 2016 meeting 15 of Community Council, except Bills 364, 371, 351, and 372.
And Councillor Wong-Tam.
That the Toronto...
Oh, all those in favor, opposed, that carries. Councillor Wong-Tam, sorry.
The Toronto and East Shore Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceeding of the Toronto and East Shore Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 15 on April 5, 2016.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And I would like to thank Ellen for the fastest community council meeting of certainly my 2 terms.
Oh, no, don't. It's easier on me if it's long.
And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for everything.
No, that went really
Great.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor.